Welcome to the Oracle Scroll. This is a new year, a new decade, and a new beginning. We have a new look and a new sound. So we appreciate you joining us today. I'm Kevin Walder, your host, and I will be joined by guests along the way as we assemble information on how we can make this our best life, how we can create the world we live in. Welcome back to episode 47 of the Oracle Scroll. And we appreciate you joining us today as we begin to explore the minor arcana of the tarot. We've already been through quite in-depth discussions about the characters of the major arcana, and now the minor arcana will come along and fill in the narrative, give us a little more meaning that we can put with the entire reading. So, beginning as we will with the aces in the deck. We're going to take them in numerical order first, and then we'll expand on them as we go. So when we look at the aces, first of all, the aces are the very beginning card. They are the opening salvo, if you want to put it that way. They are the beginning of brand new undertakings in each of their respective fields. So the aces are what we call the first of the work cards. Ace, 2, 3, those are all work cards. But the ace is where it all begins. And they have, even though they vary quite a lot in the way they affect our lives, they have a lot in common with each other. They are extremely positive cards. They're very encouraging cards because they come along at a time when everything's positive. All the possibilities are still there. Everything is pregnant with possibilities, as I like to say. And so there's really nothing that you can find negative about them. They're very encouraging. And they talk about the work and the effort that's going to be required to make this new beginning take shape. And that's okay. We're fine with that. So as we begin to look at the wands, keeping that in mind, that they are the beginning. They're the first notion. For me, it's kind of like when I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, that sometimes is my ace. Sometimes that's where we begin. In fact, this podcast could be considered one of those. So when we begin to look at the deck, starting with the wands being that fire element, motivation, passion, the things that really keep us moving and excited about life. So the ace, oh my gosh, I mean, there's a lot of positivity there. It's especially encouraging because it's talking really about establishing a new identity. That fire is what will come to define most of us. It can be a recent discovery, something brand new that you've never known about before, discovering a new art or a new interest in writing, or any of those things can take that shape of being your ace of wands. So with one of the, I keep referring back to certain decks. One of my favorite depictions of this is the Robin Hood deck, and it's a single wand with sunflowers. And it reminds me a lot of her rendition of the Sun card. So it's a spark of passion. It's energy, much like what we would receive from the sun. So without that energy, nothing would ever be launched. Nothing new would ever take shape. It would just be something that would continue to be a daydream. So this card reminds us that we can never remain stagnant. You cannot stand still. You're either moving forward or you're sliding backwards. And so you have to accept that concept of life to understand fully the meaning of the ace. And the aces, they come along to keep us inspired. Okay? So when I see that Ace of Wands come up in a reading, it tells me that the person sitting opposite me has recently, or is right at this very moment, realizing a brand new side of themselves. And it's not trivial. It's nothing that they would just pass off as being unworthy. This is earth shattering. This is something that is really going to shape their life in the future. And it's going to shape their perception of themselves and how they might describe themselves to other people that they meet along their path. So when you think about that Ace of Wands, you might just ask yourself, how will your new concept redefine you as an individual? How will your new idea, your new passion, how will it change you and be manifest in your life? All right? So that's kind of, in a very brief nutshell, what the Ace of Wands will bring to the reading. It's the energy of that card. And there's a lot more that can be said about it, but I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it for you. Next, we move to the Suit of Cups. Now, cups are always considered to be emotions and emotional attachments. And I always hasten to note that it isn't always a relationship issue. Sometimes we get emotionally attached to a situation, a job, a career, a home, a car. Maybe there's all kinds of things that we can become emotionally attached to. So this Suit of Cups covers all of those things. So the Ace of Cups is a new beginning on that level. Now, does it mean that you're going to start a new romance every time you see the Ace of Cups come up? No. What that means is maybe there's a part of your present relationship that needs to be renewed, that needs to be strengthened. And so this is the beginning of putting that back together. So the artwork on Robin Wood shows a single cup that is just overflowing, and it's sitting in a very lush background. So it's kind of inviting. It asks us to step into that point of thinking about things and imagining what it might be like. So this, while it can definitely refer to a new relationship, it can be more about invigorating or energizing a present relationship. And it can be an experience of emotional attachment that you may never have had before. And so you're introducing yourself to that. So when you see this card come up in a reading, you might ask yourself how you could invite the energy of this Ace of Cups to manifest in your life, and how you would respond to an emotional charge of inspiration. What would it do for you? Would it frighten you? Or would it excite you and make you want to tackle it? So that's the idea of the Ace of Cups, and that's the energy that it brings to a reading, because it's just basically talking about getting started. And that's probably one of the things that we as humans, it's pretty easy for us to push back the date. I do that all the time, so I understand that fully. It's easier to postpone than to take charge. And this card says, you don't get to do that anymore. Now it's time to take charge. So next up are the swords. Now, the swords are quite often misunderstood at times, but they can be very they can be a little difficult and a little challenging to read because sometimes they portray an event or a series of events that it just really doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel comfortable to us. And because it's talking about your thoughts, your mind, your conscious mind, the way you think and reason, the story you tell yourself. That's exactly how do you describe yourself? What is your story? And that is what the swords are all about. Breaking free of that story so that you can actually move on. All right? So the ace in that suit of swords, it denotes a change in beliefs, thought processes, maybe even questioning every rule that you've ever lived by. I always say that the Ace of Swords is kind of like go clean your room. It's kind of like it's time to clean out the old crap and get on with something new. And it speaks to us of invention, discovery, and it leads to a new appreciation of your world. You will find that what the mind does is it creates safe spaces. Safe spaces are wonderful while you need that safe space. But once you grow a bit more, they become quite confining because they're keeping you in that safe space. So the ace is what would you do if you could move beyond that safe space, created, I mean, quite innocently by your mind to protect you? But it's not necessary anymore. So it can be interesting to see when these come up in a reading because it tells me that this person sitting opposite me now has begun to question a lot of the rules that they've been living by. They have begun to question all the long held beliefs, and they're starting to develop their own and call their own philosophy their own. Okay? Sometimes getting back to the beginning is the only way to make sense of the way we think. And this card says that the time is absolutely right. The time is now for us to put that process into motion. The Ace of Swords says that the person sitting opposite me is finding their own way through the noise and the clutter of everybody else's conflicting ideas. So, if you've ever noticed scientific studies, you can find a scientific study that will prove anything you wish because it can be rigged. There are so many variations. In my lifetime, and that's been a few years, the ubiquitous coffee has become, it's either detrimental to your health or, oh my goodness, it's the elixir of life. So you have your choice, whichever side you decide you want to be on. So when you see that ace come up, you can begin to ask yourself, how would you be benefiting from such an infusion of energy and movement? And then how do you remain open to that energy on a daily basis? How do you keep your mind from forming conclusions that are limiting? How do you move out of that limiting thought process and into expansion? All right. So that's the Ace of Swords. And we have one more ace. And that's the Ace of Coins. Coins, of course, are all about the physical side of life. And I always break that down to the three basics. It's money, home, and health. It's the things that we can't live without, basically. And so the Ace of Coins is going to address that. And I talk about the Ace of Coins as being a beginning, and a lot of times it's a new job or expanded responsibilities where you are. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you're going to move to a new employer, or you're going to move to a different department. Maybe you're just going to move into a new position within your present department, and it's just going to expand from there. More often than not in our modern society, this card tends to deal with money. Yep. And if you think about it, your home and your health get tied up with that really quickly. Those things all fit together very well. So it's easy to go from a money issue to a all three issue. So that's where the Ace of Coins comes in. And I always talk about the wands being my favorite suit in the deck because they're motivation and passion. And I think of that, when I think of wands, I think of a career. And when I think of coins, I think of a job. And the two don't actually meet. A job is there for just that purpose, is to provide for you to maintain life. A career is a passion and a calling and a motivation to do something beyond yourself and beyond just sustenance. So they're kind of two different things, even though they can run concurrently. All right. So when I see that Ace of Coins come up in a reading, I pretty much know that my querent, the person sitting opposite me, is involved in a new venture. This may be something they are not even quite aware of yet. It's just taking shape and taking form. Or it could be something that they have been working on for some time, but it's like that flower just ready to burst, ready to bloom. It's ready to manifest for them. Now, this could be a new business. It could be something that they are expanding their home. There's a variety of different ways that this energy can be manifest for a client. But it's a big step. It's a big step. And there's a lot of excitement and a lot of trepidation that goes into that big step. So this card can also indicate a new start on dealing with things that we've just kind of been ignoring, okay? And feeling that anticipation of starting over. There's an excitement to that. Even though sometimes it can be quite scary, there is an excitement to starting over. It's amazing what it can do for you and the energy it pumps into everything you try to put together. All right? So when we get to the end of that reading with the Ace of Coins showing up, the questions would be, what do you do to keep that feeling of freshness alive in your daily life? How do you make those mundane chores that we all have to do, how do you make them part of an exciting new beginning for your own expression and how you are going to view the world, and the world will view you? All right, so that's basically what the aces are about. And the aces they are the beginning. They are the start, the jumping off point. They are the beginning of the new idea. You really haven't taken any action yet when you're at the ace. You're just expressing the concept and you're feeling the energy of that new beginning. So please join with us as we continue to explore the minor arcana of the tarot. Believe me, it is not secondary and it is certainly not minor because it has a lot to say. And we'll be interested in seeing what it's going to tell us as we progress through the rest of the deck. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next episode. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Oracle Scroll. Any questions, comments, or anything at all can be forwarded to us at theoraclescroll@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, you may check kevinwalder.com for any further information on the work of your host. And we appreciate you being with us and hope you will spread the word, let your family and friends know how much fun it is to attend the Oracle Scroll. See you next time.